Skelegod, exploring the new age Skeletor. Here at Marvelous Videos, we always come back to cartoons that ruled TV in the 1980s.
Because unlike you, Petros has a brain.
Those of you who watched the golden age of cartoons will definitely remember the iconic rivalry between He-Man and Skeletor in the Masters of Universe series. Mattel developed the media franchise Masters of the Universe, which has a planet and sword concept. The primary plot centers around the fight between He-Man, Prince Adam's alter persona, and evil villain Skeletor on the planet Eternia, with a huge supporting cast in a world that combines sci-fi technology and medieval sword and sorcery.
And I have come for you.
This video, however, is all about a brand new version of Skeletor, so keep watching.
This video is sponsored by Babbel, one of the top language learning apps in the world. In this area of globalization, I have often felt the need to sharpen my skills in some foreign languages, especially before my trip to Germany. I was anxious that I wouldn't have enough time to enhance my command over the German language. This is when I was introduced to Babbel, and the 10-minute interactive lessons were extremely helpful. It helped me brush up on practical conversations, and also saved valuable time. The award-winning technology used by Babbel has been scientifically proven to help people learn new languages in just 3 weeks, and real language teachers make it a lot easier to understand. This app is also very simple to use on your phone and compatible with all kinds of devices. Their 20-day money-back guarantee makes it a lucrative deal, and do let us know which language you would like to learn and why. Check out the link in the description to get 65% off your subscription and start learning a new language today, because learning new languages can open up doors that you never knew existed. Tschüss und pass auf dich auf. Goodbye and take care.
Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a whole heck of a lot. So thank you, and let's begin.
Congratulations, Spycar, and good luck. You're going to need it.
He-Man and the Masters of the Universe. What is the story? Since the franchise's inception, several action figure lines, animated television programs, comic books, video games, novels, magazines, a daily newspaper comic strip, and 2 feature films, 1 animated and 1 live action, have all been produced.
And the scepter will be mine. An excellent plan I came up with, eh, Evelyn?
For most of its run and in most of its iterations, Masters of the Universe has focused on the story of its 2 main protagonists, the blonde and muscular He-Man, the most powerful man in the universe, and his antagonist, Skeletor, a wicked sorcerer with a skull face and blue skin, as well as many morally charged interactions on the planet Eternia. He-Man fights Skeletor to stop him from capturing Eternia and learning the secrets of Castle Grayskull, a strange old castle with a skull-shaped front that is full of magic and power. The conflict is set in a hybrid universe of sword and sorcery and technological sci-fi.
Of course, He-Man. Just as soon as you escort me into Castle Grayskull.
Even though He-Man's character is obviously the most important and the most iconic, we can't deny that He-Man would not be He-Man if Skeletor did not exist. While there are definitely other villains and foes that would love to destroy Eternia and defeat Prince Adam, Skeletor is definitely the primary mastermind and the only one who could almost match up to He-Man. Typically, he is shown as a blue-skinned humanoid with a purple hood covering his skeletal skull. Skeletor is committed to obtaining the powers of Castle Grayskull and establishing himself as the supreme ruler of the universe, but his plans are often thwarted by his henchmen's stupidity. Masters of the Universe Revelation, a new Netflix series. Recently, Masters of the Universe has made a comeback to the small screen via a show titled Masters of the Universe Revelation that is now available on Netflix, and fans will definitely find this one interesting. Why, you ask? Well, it is a direct sequel to how the original series ended in 1985, and most excitingly, it reimagines Skeletor, making him the most wicked and cool that he's ever been. Before we move on to Skeletor, it is important to know the backdrop of the show and how it all began. The American animated superhero fantasy television series called Masters of the Universe Revelation was created by Kevin Smith and the Powerhouse Animation Studios. The story of Revelation examines unfinished stories from the original 1980s series He-Man and the Masters of the Universe by Filmation, which ran from 1983 to 1985. It ignores the events entirely of the New Adventures of He-Man, which came out in 1990. The first 5 episodes of the series were released on Netflix on July 23, 2021, followed by another 5 episodes on November 23, 2021. He-Man's appearance in the Masters of the Universe Revelation film appears to be less spectacular than it actually is. It's a straight sequel, not a reboot, and it picks up immediately after the original cartoon's 1985 conclusion. The cast of characters is the same, but some of them are fairly ridiculous, including a wimpy battle cat and extraterrestrial sorcerer who struggles with self-esteem. Skeletor continues to be a huge knobhead. However, the show manages to evolve into something that nearly feels brand new because of a risky choice made early on. Here is where good old Skeletor comes in.
Let this be our final battle!
The new Skeletor. Masters of the Universe Revelation doesn't spare any time in setting up the events, because we must remember this is a straight up sequel. Skeletor is seen hatching a scheme to destroy Castle Grayskull in order to disclose its actual potential so that he can wield all of the power. Unfortunately, his onslaught could also have the unintended consequence of wiping out all of existence in addition to the planet Eternia, but this is how it all played out.
The secrets of Grayskull will be mine!
Skeletor had ultimately realized that Castle Grayskull was nothing more than an illusionary structure whose only function was to protect the Orb of Power, and he wanted it all for himself. The Lord of Destruction decided to make use of deception to enter the castle. He pretended to have been captured by He-Man, who was actually the robot faker in disguise, along with Evelyn, who was dressed as Clawful. He also used the shaping staff to transform himself into one of his henchmen, Spikor. This trickery succeeded in fooling the sorceress long enough for the evil warriors to invade Grayskull. Skeletor then gave the command for the rest of his forces to launch an all-out attack on the castle in order to confront the heroic warriors and the royal guards who were obligated to defend Grayskull. Skeletor quickly gained entry to Grayskull's interior and vanquished Mossman, a formidable nature god.
Smells like pine.
He then tricked He-Man into impaling him with his powerful sword so that it would also pierce the Orb of Power and unlock it like a key. Skeletor then smashed the sphere with his own Havoc Staff, breaking it open and unleashing the magic force that had forged Eternia and the entire cosmos. The sorceress was able to temporarily stop time so that she could speak with He-Man and Teela, because she knew that piercing the orb and releasing all the magic would mark the destruction of all existence. He-Man uses his Sword of Power, which broke in two, to try to absorb the orb's magical powers. As a result, Battle Cat, his regal steed, changed back into Cringer, and He-Man became Prince Adam once more. Adam and Skeletor were both destroyed in the explosion brought on by the magical hit, as they attempted to take the two sword pieces for themselves. The top of Skeletor's Havoc Staff was the only object left behind from the incident that removed the two most iconic characters from the show in the very first episode of the two-part series. Although they are obviously mentioned here and there and their larger presence is felt, they are thought to be dead otherwise for all uses and purposes. In this first episode, Skeletor is shown in his iconic form wielding his Havoc Staff. Some fans seem to think that he was too well prepared and his henchmen carried out his plan to perfection, unlike the depiction in the older series. Thus, all in all, we see a pretty typical Skeletor, who this time around was definitely more determined to destroy Prince Adam and rule over the universe than he had ever been before. He fought tooth and nail, even defeating Mossman in the process, which shocked He-Man. However, if you thought Skeletor was really dead after the first episode, well then, joke's on you, because of course he had an elaborate plan that he carried out to perfection. That led him to become the new version of himself, Skelegod. As it turns out, the blast which killed He-Man did not kill Skeletor. In fact, a very small portion of Skeletor's essence weathered the explosion and, unbeknownst to Evelyn, found sanctuary in her wand staff. However, this is something we don't find out until much later. In the meanwhile, we watch as all the side characters get story arcs of their own, and Snake Mountain, once Skeletor's lair, gets taken over by a weird machine cult that worships an entity called the Motherboard.
Unto we, glory evermore to the motherboard!
Thus, with the same cast of characters and settings, this premise allows the show to mostly shed its Sunday morning cartoon feel. The sci-fi and swords and sorcery blended in eternity continue to be intriguing, as though Frank Frazetta and Ralph McQuarrie got together for an epic jam session. Sword-wielding warriors ride mechanized horses and armored cats into combat alongside killer robots and beastmen. This time there's a slightly more Mad Max feel to the situation as villagers battle for the remaining bits of magic while being terrorized by the techno cult. Tila has a new profession as a mercenary, Man-at-Arms has changed into a hermit in the Obi-Wan tradition, and Evelyn is left lost without a ruler to back her up. However, with the magic running out and Eternia on the brink of apocalypse, Tila sets off on a mission to find the Sword of Power's two pieces and combine them into one. Among the warriors who accompanied her were Evelyn, who was guarding her with her wand, and Beastman. They saw Adam again in Eternia, the Eternian afterlife, who had foregone his eternal reward with him. They returned to the world of the living so that he could summon the power of Grayskull and bring back magic to the cosmos. He-Man's return filled everyone with joy and relief as he summoned the power and almost restored the inner chamber of Castle Grayskull. However, all of that happiness was not meant to last for long. Skeletor was ultimately able to rebuild himself when magic reappeared. The skull from his Havoc staff levitated and hovered in the air as he slowly restored himself from the little fragment of his soul that had previously managed to survive. All the other present there, including Evelyn, the guardian sorceress, and Tila, watched in horror as the villain that they had believed to be long dead materialized in front of their eyes. Before anyone could react to him, he stabbed Adam in the back, preventing his transformation into He-Man by gravely injuring him. You know it's bad when Prince Adam bleeds from his mouth and falls to the ground. Following the use of the Sword of Power, Skeletor invited Beastman and Evelyn to stand by his side while he usurped Grayskull's power, becoming the one and only Skelegod. Beastman and Evelyn go back to serving their evil master as he invokes the power of Grayskull, and with a bright blast of purple light and magic, he becomes Master of the Universe. This brings the first part to an end, a grim ending indeed.
Even though I have the sword, that boy called down the power without it.
The most epic form of Skeletor, Skelegod. We see the craziest thing happen in this series, and that is the sort of Pokemon-esque level up from Skeletor as he transforms into his largest and most evil form yet, Skelegod. Therefore, in essence, Skeletor finally accomplishes his long-standing goal and becomes Master of the Universe in the first installment of Kevin Smith's He-Man and the Masters of the Universe sequel series, Masters of the Universe Revelation, after obtaining the reforged Power Sword and summoning the power of Grayskull. With the exception of He-Man, Skeletor has always been a force to be reckoned with. He possesses enough inherent magical power to defeat nearly all of the Masters of the Universe. The conclusion of Masters of the Universe Revelation Season 1 further emphasizes the idea of the unbridled strength by showing that he was even capable of entering Evelyn's sphere to avoid death at a crucial juncture. But Skeletor now owned all of Grayskull's magic in addition to his own skills. He became the universe's most potent being in all actuality. The upcoming Part 2 changed Skeletor's name to Skelegod to reflect this.
Skeletor. It tastes like...
He thus transformed into a massive character who proclaimed himself the Master of the Universe. It is in Part 2 that we see Skelegod carry out his evil plans, finally having usurped the magical power of Grayskull. The Skelegod now has massive devil horns, a hulking figure, and a green flame burning in the place of his neck. He gathers all those who could ever oppose him, Prince Adam, Tila, and their allies. The first thing he does as Skelegod is tries to kill the sorceress of Grayskull while giving a bizarre evil lecture about power, gloating about how he wielded all the power in the universe.
Prince of Eternia and Defender.
However, Prince Adam strikes back with the help of his tiger Cringer. A major fight ensues as the Man-at-Arms, Teela, and Adam try to take on the new and improved Skeletor. However, they are unable to stop him and escape Castle Grayskull, getting stuck between a locked door and the evil villains. Seeing the dismal situation of the defenders of Eternia and Castle Grayskull, the sorceress decides to fight Skelegod herself, but he proves to be far more powerful than she had ever imagined. Her magic is no match for him, and when he manages to teleport Heman and Teela away, she falls victim to Skelegod, who impales her with his sword. He then names Evelyn as her replacement as the Sorceress of Grayskull, the Mistress of Magic. However, he also reveals to her that he practically latched onto her at the very last moments of his life in an attempt to survive, feeding off of her and covertly directing her to come back to Castle Grayskull. She realizes that she had been used, but she could not really complain since Skelegod shared some of his powers with her, making her the Sorceress of Grayskull. But she does realize that being the Mistress of Magic meant that she would be bound to the castle, developing resentment for her master. He proceeds to reveal his gigantic form to all of Eternia, appearing as a large green projection in the purple sky. He uses his powers to conjure up an army of the dead, turning regular people into demons. Furthermore, the moment he spots Prince Adam and his allies, he begins pursuing them, using his corrosive mist tendrils, and then overtakes the souls of the deceased Fisto and Clampchamp in a hideous display of his newfound strength, and uses them to attack Teela and Prince Adam. He is the embodiment of evil in the second part as he unleashes havoc and chaos. One specific scene comes to mind where Skeletor's hulking new form, which symbolizes the fact that he has absorbed all magical powers in the cosmos, is seen hovering over Castle Grayskull, with his signature emerald-colored ethereal energy surrounding him.
Or after all these years of appetition, maybe I'm just savoring the taste.
He continues to pursue Prince Adam as he proclaims that he not only had command over life and death, but he also had control over afterlife as well, showcasing the full extent of his newly acquired power. In addition to this major reveal, Mattel has made available the Skelegod action figure from the Masters of the Universe Masterverse Revelation, which features the antagonist in his upgraded form and formally establishes Skelegod as his new name going forward. The Power Sword is one of the several accessories that come with the figurine, so for all of you out there who like collector's items, this one might be worth checking out.
Tell you what, kid, take your best shot.
The Fall of Skelegod. While he did become imbued with immense power, he underestimates He-Man and his allies. After He-Man was teleported to safety by the sorceress, Teela discovered the magic that had been within her this entire time and used it to heal Prince Adam, closing his wounds and resuscitating him. They go on the run, but Skelegod spots them and hunts them down to the royal castle where he goads Prince Adam into a battle. But well, he basically calls upon his own doom. Laughing at the frivolity of Skelegod's words, Prince Adam reveals that he never needed the Power Sword to wield the power of Grayskull at all. The sword was just a conduit. The spark resided inside of him, and he transformed into a large raving beast known as Savage He-Man to destroy Skelegod. He is more than just a match for Skelegod, and the villain's horrific rule comes to a swift end. In fact, people who Skelegod had thought would always remain by his side, such as Evelyn, had also left him to join forces with his sworn enemy He-Man. This episode plays out in a pretty epic manner. Prince Adam extends his empty hands towards the sky and calls forth the power of Grayskull. Thunder and lightning follow his invocation of power, and in the blink of an eye he is transformed into Savage He-Man, an enhanced version of He-Man. Seeing his transformation, Skelegod is shocked, and Savage He-Man almost effortlessly pushes him, throwing him outside of the castle walls. He is then attacked by a horde of demonic soldiers, but kills them all with ease. Finally, Skelegod and Savage He-Man face off against each other in a one-on-one battle, with Skelegod using his magical powers to try to defeat the hero. Savage He-Man, on the other hand, uses the brute strength to overpower him and take him down. No amount of portals or magical blasts were enough to stop the new version of He-Man. If Skeletor had gotten an upgrade, then so had he. Skelegod summoned up the demons from Subternia and surrounded the city of Eternia. However, Tila was able to call upon her magical powers and transport them all to safety, seeing that it would be impossible to take on all of them at once. An infuriated Skelegod comes back and blames Evelyn for his mistakes, searching for answers as to how Prince Adam can wield the power of Grey Skull. He makes enemies of the only people who were ever loyal to him. The age-old saying goes, don't bite the hand that feeds, and Skelegod would suffer the consequences of doing so. Due to his terrible treatment of Evelyn, she turns against him, finally shaking off the love and devotion she felt towards the villain. She convinces Skelegod to power down into his original Skeletor form by seducing him, and in doing so, she steals the power sword in the process. She invokes the power of Grayskull using the sword and transforms into Godlin, an awesome new form designed brilliantly to showcase her best features. She reveals herself to the people of Eternia, and chaos ensues as she believes that the world must return to the chaos it was born from. Skeletor shows up and offers to help Prince Adam, but as usual, he is of no real help and only looks out for himself. Although he does try to help Adam in his efforts to defeat Godlin, chaos ensues as Godlin destroys Preternia and unleashes hell on Eternia. She also tries to kill Prince Adam, but Orko, the little quirky mage who had died in the first episode, comes back from the dead to protect him. Orko tries to reason with Godlin, but obviously to no avail. She attacks him and they engage in battle, and during this, the power sword flies out of her hand and lands square in the hand of Prince Adam, who invokes the power of Grayskull, transforming into good old He-Man. Further, Tila decides to take matters into her own hands and convinces Godlin to join forces with her and He-Man before she destroys Eternia. Skeletor regains his Skelegod form during the battle and attacks He-Man, who defeats him once and for all like it was nothing more than a child. In the end, Skeletor came face to face with all that the series was really about during the decisive confrontation with He-Man. "It's not about us," He-Man said, ushering in a new age for Eternia. "Things won't always remain the same, and people won't always remain in their current positions." Evelyn decided to give up her magic. Tila evolved into a different kind of sorceress after becoming one. The new man-at-arms is Andra. Skeletor finds himself on a strange new planet, so he turns to the only people he thinks he can trust, and those happen to be his previous generals. Skeletor needs his sidekicks, even if they betrayed him and were attempting to collect all the magical objects in Eternia. He infiltrates the Motherboard cult, and enraged that Trapjaw and Triclops refuse to assist him in defeating He-Man, tries to overthrow their authority. Skeletor strikes the Motherboard statue in an effort to blow it to pieces after they refuse to submit to him. The series does a brilliant job of juxtaposing good against evil, chaos versus order, but what it does best is show us a Skeletor who finally fulfills his goal, but is too selfish and power hungry to ever see his downfall coming. He is portrayed in a way that will make fans reminisce about the good old days of the Masters of the Universe shows, and everything about this bad guy is done so extremely well. Right from Mark Hamill's genius voice acting, which really brings the character to life, to the animation which perfectly embodies Skeletor. This series is now available for streaming on Netflix, and for those who want more, we have good news. In June 2022, Netflix announced a follow-up series named Masters of the Universe Revolution, so we could potentially see Skeletor making a comeback again. So what do you guys think about Skeletor's new form? Let us know in the comments section below, and if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Besides that, y'all have a good one and be safe. Thank you, everybody.
It has to end this way. He-Man and Skeletor locked in